Hello everybody. Let's take today's question and ask JP. The questioner is Sudhir from Nellore. He's a UPSC aspirant. Sudhir, please go ahead.
Hi sir, my name is Sudhir. I am from Nellore. My question is regarding the Indian manufacturing sector. Government started this initiative of Make in India in 2014. Since then, from the government side, they increased the capital investment in budget and brought PLI schemes, and our rank also improved in ease of doing business. But according to recent economic survey 23 financial year, our industry sector grown at 4.1%, just 4.1%, even after almost a decade. One side we surpassed China in population, another side our labor-intensive sector is lagging. Please address my doubt, sir. Why even after these many initiatives we are lagging?
Great question, Sudhir. Despite years of effort in capital expenditure, improving the ease of doing business, programs like production linked incentives, etc., we are still not able to achieve enough in terms of industrial growth. It's a legitimate question. First, we must recognize, is it necessary or not to promote manufacturing and industrialization? I have no doubt in my mind, no serious, genuine economist who cares for the future of the country will ever argue that manufacturing is not required, because while it cannot provide all the jobs in a modern economy, just like agriculture cannot provide all the jobs in a modern economy, manufacturing, particularly in a country like India with enormous surplus labor, so-called demographic dividend, manufacturing is vital. You cannot ignore that. We missed the bus. We wasted priceless opportunities in the past 30, 40 years, and even after 1991's economic liberalization. Now, manufacturing, why do we need it? First, employment generation, particularly of the low-skilled people. And one employment in manufacturing generates 5 more employees, either in the supply chain or in the service sector. And of course, it stimulates the demand because incomes are now going to a large number of workers who otherwise were unemployed or were in the unorganized sector earlier. It also allows formalization of the economy. Manufacturing allows value addition. It promotes exports without participating in international trade effectively, meeting the needs of the rest of the world. We cannot grow as an economy or modernize our economy. For all these reasons, manufacturing is absolutely critical. We ignored it, neglected it for a long time. But manufacturing doesn't happen like, flicking on a switch. We switch on, suddenly manufacturing grows. We switch off and it stops. It doesn't happen like that. Decades of effort is required. Infrastructure creation, technology upgradation, investment promotion policies, and building and manufacturing capability, improving the quality, meeting the global standards, and being able to penetrate the global markets which are well established, because we are late entrants, please remember. And slowly upgradation, moving up the value chain. Even very successful countries in manufacturing, whom we admire today, they started as countries providing manufacturing at low level. Japanese goods, many people may be unaware, in the 1950s were regarded as inferior. If you said something is Japanese, it's supposed to be substandard. Germany was the gold standard then and now. But today Japan is the gold standard for many things. Look at Toyota. They move up the value chain. Chinese goods not too long ago were regarded as substandard compared to Japan and other countries. But today, not so much. There are many Chinese goods which are pretty good quality. And they're improving, again moving up the value chain. And India too will move up the value chain. What it means is that we are not able to get more than 4 or 5% industrial growth means a lot more needs to be done. What is being done is necessary, whether it's PLI or infrastructure, ease of doing business is necessary, but not sufficient. Time is also necessary because other countries moved ahead. They took decades. South Korea, Taiwan, or Japan, and of course China in recent years, they have not done it overnight. They systematically put everything in place and worked hard year after year after year, decade after decade, and got exceptional results. We require that patience and perseverance and a complete package being available. Even Vietnam is doing pretty well now, is taking advantage. Even Bangladesh, in some respects, is doing very well. There's no reason why India cannot do. I'll come to some numbers about one or two sectors related to these countries in India, then we'll see how much potential exists. But we have to do it and do more and explore every possible avenue. A country of India's size and diversity cannot simply give up on any sector. We can't give up on agriculture. We cannot give up on manufacturing. Of course, we cannot give up on services at the low end and the high end both. It has to be everything. We're not a tiny country where we depend on one small segment of the economy and say we are doing well. We cannot, because annually we're adding about 1 crore, more than 10 million workers to the job market. And unless most of them are accommodated at a reasonable wage employment in industrial and services sector, both, we simply have no future. The demographic dividend will become demographic nightmare. So, what are some of the things that we can do more than what we are doing? Perhaps one area is we have not given adequate attention to the labor-intensive sector. We talk about it. Even in the PLI and other areas, a lot more emphasis is needed to the labor-intensive sector. What are these labor-intensive sectors? Textiles and garments, plastics, footwear, leather industry. We are the largest producer of leather in the world. We have the largest black cattle in the world. Your buffaloes and bullocks and so on and so forth. And yet, leather industry, we are not number one. We are not number one in textiles, despite being the first or second biggest producer of cotton in the world, with enormous labor available in the country. Automobile components, sports goods, electronics, food processing. We are one of the biggest producers of horticulture in the country. But our food processing is just about 2-3%. Value addition is not taking place. So there's a whole lot of areas, and our policies must be fine-tuned to labor-intensive sectors primarily. Let's look at one sector to understand how much of a gap there is and the possibilities of filling it. Take textiles and garment. India is consistently the first or second biggest producer of cotton. About 27 million hectares of Indian agricultural land. 27 million hectares of Indian agricultural land is under cotton. About 20% of all the agricultural holdings, the farmers in India, they produce cotton. Now, what is happening in terms of, we are number one and number two producers. But who are the biggest garments and textile exporters in the world? You know, Bangladesh exports more than India. India exports about $41 billion of textiles and garments together, whereas Bangladesh exports about $55 billion of textiles and garments. China exports $323 billion. China, you can say Bangladesh is a poor country, they have quotas. China's GDP is about 5.5 times India's. China doesn't have textile quotas in the world, garment quotas in the world. China is super rich by Indian standards. China's total exports are $3.6 trillion, $3,600 billion. They're the world's biggest manufacturer, biggest industrial exporter. You take it, you name it, any sector. And yet, the labor-intensive sectors like textiles and garments, China is the biggest exporter, $323 billion into the year 2021. India is still at $41 billion because of terrible labor laws. Protecting the existing organized labor at the cost of generating new employment in the organized industrial sector. Let me re-emphasize, we protected the existing organized labor enormously, created so many hurdles, made it a very painful process for an employer to employ anybody new, gave a disincentive for employment. Ultimately, labor laws became anti-employment in the country. Some effort is being made to make them better, but we are way behind the rest of the world. There's one factory called Brandix near Visakhapatnam in Andhra Pradesh, a place called Achyutapuram. It employs more than 20,000 workers, just one garment industry. Sri Lankan investors came and invested here. In every single village, in hundreds of villages in the surrounding area, everybody who wants to be employed is employed. They're not even relocated. They live in those villages, they're ferried every day by bus, they work here in an organized sector with wage security and with certain other welfare systems, including a creche, etc., and they go back again to their families. There is a complete transformation of women's empowerment. That should happen in every district of India. There are only one or two such examples, and we are eulogizing them. Because of terrible climate we created by our regulation, bad regulation, well-meaning but bad regulation, and many other policy inconsistencies, we have not promoted wage employment in the labor-intensive sectors. We have to do massively. Our exports in the manufacturing sector, in the merchandise exports, or even today, when we have actually significantly improved in 22 to 23, they are $447 billion. China, as I said, is a $3,600 billion. We can do a lot better, a lot more. We have to move up the value chain. We have to be patient. Just because we don't get dramatic results in 1 year, we must not lose heart. A lot more needs to be done. A culture must be created. And then globally, the world must have confidence in our supply chains. There's an opportunity now because the world, for whatever reason, is looking for China plus supply chains. They don't want to depend only on China for geostrategic reasons and for practical reasons. Dependence on one country, 100%, could lead to a disaster when crisis strikes us. In any case, for a variety of reasons, for Europe and America, many countries, they're worried about China's unlimited growth and excessive dependence on China. While China will continue to dominate the global markets, we can occupy that space. If Vietnam is able to do, if Bangladesh is able to do in some sectors, why can't India do it? So the answer is not giving up on manufacturing, but doing a lot more, a lot better, and having patience and perseverance. And we must have a long-term approach. And we must realize that there will be value chain, we move up the value chain. Overnight, we cannot meet German and Japanese standards, just as Japan did not meet German standards. Just as China is taking time to meet the global standards in some respects. We cannot meet overnight. We committed mistakes. We must learn from these mistakes, overcome them, and move up the value chain and improve industrial manufacturing, even as we increase our exports in services and exports in agriculture. We can do immensely in both these areas too. In healthcare alone, if we design it better, we are now exporting about $13 to $14 billion services in healthcare. In other words, 1 million patients are coming to India, and they're spending about $13 to $14 billion for health services because we're very competitive, very low cost, high quality services we're able to provide. But if we get a few things right, we can make it $100 billion. Our agricultural exports alone can become more than $100 billion. Additional, over and above what we are exporting today. There's immense opportunity, but we must seize it. And we must do a lot of hard work to make things happen. And without that merely sloganeering or being impatient overnight or attacking each other on party lines without looking at India's future, we'll be doing damage to ourselves. Let us keep partisan politics aside, vote for whomever we please on that day depending on our assessment of their performance or otherwise. But let us not undermine the country's future because of our predilections politically on a given day. Because politicians come and go, parties come and go, but the national interest is permanent. And our children's employment, eliminating poverty, creating opportunity for everybody, that is a permanent need in this country with a vast population which is underutilized.